Prologue 164 Americ Calendar. Ships cluttered space surrounding the barren moonbase of Cold Rock and Red Reach. Enough ships to tear reality. Battle wheels hummed in place, drives engaging just enough for skim telemetry to reveal the Firefly tracks of Rel ships on their nerve-cloth displays. All around them, in ever-changing arcs, buzzed hordes of small spherical Rel fighters, manned by highborn pilots, the living weapons of the medium. Emotions soaked the medium in which they traveled. Grief and anger, and a pale hope held out against the horror of a final soul-numbing battle if their leaders down on Cold Rock could not find a way to end the war that was destroying them all. Relish clans had met on Cold Rock for 1,000 years, coming from all across Red Reach to settle their differences by the sword. Because swords were safer than space wars, and habitat was far more precious than any cause that might inspire battle. This was the great truth of Okal Rel. But sword law required shared courts of honor, and the Vrelish shared no liege with their enemies. Daimon of the Green Vrelish did not know what the defeated Nessaks planned. Maybe a duel to save face, or a bargain to negotiate a safe withdrawal. Perhaps even some treachery with hidden weapons meant to kill the Vrelish leaders. He had talked his side into meeting on the Cold Rock challenge floor in the hope that the Nessak survivors were as sick of grief and mad destruction as he was. The Nessaks had sent 3 representatives to negotiate. Behind them were witnesses drawn from their battle wheels, all of them wearing their swords with pride as if they had never participated in space-side massacres. The inhabitants of Cold Rock filled the rest of the seats around the challenge floor, seated on thick rugs with children on their shoulders or in their laps. Both sexes managed the children, and both dressed the same, right down to the swords worn at their sides. Daimon had been chosen to speak for the Vrelish cause. Beside him, young Vakal Vrel fingered his sword. Hangst Nersal of the Black Vrelish stood large and menacing, backed up in space by the best-standing fleet in all Seveldom. The warrior, priest, and princess facing them were members of the Nessak ruling family, or so Daimon had been told. He understood very little of Nessak political structure. The princess had wide green eyes, long hair that fell to her shoulders, and a floor-length gown worn over a bulky cloak of plain velvet. Neither she nor the priest wore a sword. That meant only one of the Nessaks was equipped to parley under sword law. "I am Prince Keen," said the Nessak warrior, as he drew his sword. "I speak for my people, who speaks for the Vrelish?" "I do." Daimon cleared his own sword with equally formal intentions. "I am Daimon, liege of Monitum." Keen frowned at Monitum's sextant crest embroidered on the breast of Daimon's silk shirt. "I would rather not negotiate with the Monetees," he declared. "Hangst Nersal is our kinsman, descended from Prince Nersal Nessak. Let him speak for the Vrelish." Hangst's jaw muscles clenched. Daimon considered graciously conceding, but he was not feeling diplomatic at all. His heart hurt for the pilots he had lost. His blood boiled as hotly as Vakal's, with the lust for vengeance that he had to fight to control. Hot sweat trickled between his shoulder blades, heated by his skin despite the cool air in the cavernous chamber. They were all overflown. Vakal was agitated, Hangst was grim, and Daimon was feverish with anger at the waste and stupidity of it all. The silence grew so brittle that it had to break soon, or draw blood. Then Hangst Nersal stepped forward. "Well met, in honor, Prince Keen," he told the Nessak prince. "Akrel." Akrel. People said it in grief and in parting. They said it in triumph, to mitigate the sting of an enemy's defeat. Most of all, they said it to remind themselves that the duty of all living souls was to preserve the potential for life in the universe for the sake of the waiting dead. "Akrel," Daimon repeated silently to himself, and felt the great pressure of his own hatred relax in his chest. Never had he wanted more desperately to believe the dead could live again, or felt more bitterly the isolation of his doubting nature. The phrase worked its magic on the Nessacs as well. "Akrel," said Keen. Turning to the robed man beside him, he said, "This is Zersarn, a priest representing Zersis Okal and his council." Daimon knew Hangst had Nessac ancestors, but he had never felt the truth of it until then. Hangst and Keen were both big, wide-shouldered men, while he and Vakal were lean, with sharper features. He felt momentarily insecure, and immediately regretted it. "I do not doubt you, Borello," Daimon silently promised his comrade and mentor, drawing strength from the word Borello itself, which meant someone you trusted to stand with you in a common cause. "Both sides have lost too many lives," said Keen. "Survivors need time to grow strong again. How will we settle our differences with honor to conclude this war?" "This is my reach," Vakal cried, pushing forward. "I'll fight the duel." "Not a duel," the priest spoke up in a booming voice of command. He waved the Nessac princess forward. "Marriage." The Vrelish in the audience hissed and shouted. Daimon clapped a hand on Vakal's wrist to stop him charging. "Vrelish do not marry," Vakal roared, struggling to break free of Daimon. "I do not even pleasure female cattle like that one." He spat in the princess's direction. For an instant, Prince Keen was too astonished to attack Vakal, and in that instant, his sister laid a restraining hand on his shoulder. "It is Hangst Nersal," she said, looking at him swiftly and immediately dropping her wide green eyes to the floor, looking flushed. "To whom I am betrothed." "Hangst, then," Vakal spat. "It makes no difference." Hangst Nersal stared, stony-faced, at the Nessac princess as she made herself look up again and meet his eyes. She wore a modest dress of light blue beneath her velvet cloak. Her long black hair was bound in ribbons that became her green eyes. She was not entirely grown up, but promised to be full-figured. Not at all like a hard-muscled Vrelish woman. "You are my destiny," the green-eyed princess told Hangst Nersal, with the certainty of a religious zealot. "And I am yours." "Really?" Hangst said coldly. "How so?" The priest answered, "It is her duty to restore the lost souls of the Sand Line to us, through you. When we began this war, we believed that your ancestor Nersal Nessac had been reborn among our warriors. But the new Zersis Okal has seen that his soul is still bound to the Nersalian line. We cannot prevail in our goal of uniting all Eternals while a great soul stands against us, blinded by the influence of childhood." "Their new Zersis is clever," Daimon decided, his hand still clamped harshly on young Vakal's arm. How better to explain the failure of a priest-inspired war than by discovering a spiritual miscalculation in one's predecessor? And not only that, but one that needs a generation to be put right again, which is exactly how long they think they need in order to prove once again that Nessac wives can breed warriors faster than we can restock ourselves with highborns. Vrelish of both genders were warriors, and Vrelish women were bred with difficulty. Daimon was afraid the Nessacs were right about the breeding differential, and resented it. "Fool priests!" Vakal cried. He snapped free of Daimon's restraining grip and sheathed his sword in a contemptuous gesture. "Give Hangst your plump princess. Vrelish women are generous. I am sure Mick Stan will share him, provided you throw in her brother to give us a fair crack at soul-stealing in the opposite direction." Vakal's speech whipped up cheers among his followers, accompanied by more than a few obscene gestures. The Nessac princess averted her bright green eyes while Prince Keen moved to shield his sister from Vrelish mockery. Nessacs thrust fists into the air, shouting insults about Vrelish sexual habits. Seconds short of mayhem, and to Daimon's complete astonishment, the priest broke into song. Zersarn had a powerful set of lungs. The words sounded as if they might have once been English, a dead tongue that Daimon's years of scholarship had required him to master. The song calmed the agitated Nessacs and astonished the Vrelish observers. As the audience settled down, Daimon turned to Hangst. "Will you do it?" he asked. To buy peace without blood, will you marry? Hanks took his time to think through the ramifications. They will expect a true marriage, he said finally. I will be unable to sire for vassals or to keep up Meckenstan relationships, and that will offend the Kimstan. Daimon wet his thin lips, wondering how he could feel disappointed when moments before he had felt murderous. Mood swings were a symptom of rel fatigue, he decided. He wanted to see the green world of Monitum again, to ride his favorite horse at his home estate of Stablehome. He wanted to spend time in Green Hearth, deep within the barren world of Gelion, where the Demish ruled the Ava's court. He would even be glad to sit through some interminable Demish recitation of everyone's ancestry. If only he could do it without dreading the next update of losses in a war that was consuming lives he held dear and threatening human habitat that, by its rarity, had to be even more precious than lives to a spacefaring culture. What if it was temporary? Daimon asked his Barolo. Hanks looked at him hard, and Daimon had the eerie sense of sharing the same thoughts. Hanks, too, wanted to go home, not fight one more insane battle in space, perhaps destroying Cold Rock in the process. Hanks decided, and pushed forward. I accept, he told the Nessacs. I will honor the terms of marriage as you understand them, but only until your princess has produced 3 children. Then she and the children will return to the Nessac world of San Home. The Nessac princess gave a small cry of joy and threw herself at the feet of her predestined husband. The priest conceded with a nod. So be it. Do you, Hanks Nersal, bind yourself by oath? I do, said Hangst, looking as grim as Daimon felt. Hangst would be challenged for this betrayal of Relish culture. Rise, Beryl, Zersarn told the princess. She tried, but her gown and her trembling impeded her. Keen's jaw clenched, but he stood firm. It was Hangst who reached down to help his controversial bride. She rose and stood beside him on her own, looking much steadier. Beryl Nessac, the priest addressed her, in the name of the Zersis and all the waiting dead who are your ancestors, I name you married to Hangst, liege of Nersal. Take no man to your bed but him, and bear him children. Manage the keeping of his home estate, and keep his faith strong. Love as life demands us love each other, but remember that only the soul is immortal, and no life is more important than the soul's right to be cleanly reborn. The girl looked up with tears in her wide green eyes. Do not fear for me, uncle, nor you, Keen. I will not fail in my mission. Take care of my sister, Liege Nersal, said Prince Keen. You may lack respect for our women, because they do not fight like your relish she-animals, but you have the soul of a great man, one of ours. I know that you can love, and so, because I know her, I know that you will learn to love Beryl. Treat her well while she is with you, and when the 3rd child is old enough to leave home, send for me, and Beryl will return to San Home with the children. She will always be your wife, but this will free you from your side of the bargain.